Hi guys, I'm Shmi, and today we're going to take a look at a monster of a car. This is the RUF CTR3 Club Sport, and we're going to take a look around it, go for a walk around before going out for a little bit of a test drive. Now this is a 236 mile per hour hypercar. It is clearly phenomenally capable, but first let's just talk a little bit about it. CTR3, it is the third generation car from Alois RUF, inspired by Group C cars. It's based on a turbocharged engine and the R for RUF. It's the Club Sport, it's the more hardcore, more aerodynamic, more powerful version with 777 horsepower, 980 Newton meters of torque. But let's take a little look around to get us started. And this particular car is really rather special in terms of the livery that I'm going to talk about in a moment a little bit more. But the black, the gold and the red of the German flag and the way those colours continue through the car is fairly awesome. Now, very loosely, a lot of people actually mistake the car for a Porsche. The only parts that come from a Porsche are the block for the engine and the crash structure. The rest is sort of some cosmetics, but mostly parts developed in-house by RUF. So the body is a carbon Kevlar composite, redesigned to make the car very low. It's mid-engined, rear-wheel drive, so that turbo engine block basically has to move to a different position and power different wheels because it's not all-wheel drive, making things a little bit different. 3 seconds 0 to 62 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, and on to that top speed of 236. Let's have a quick glance at the interior, where you'll see it's all low focus. This car with the 7-speed gearbox, but quite bespokely set up. What I'm going to do right now though is turn on the ignition so I can open up the rear hatch, which you do with this button right here, and it opens up in a very nice fashion to show us the engine bay back here. Now under here you have the 3.8 litre twin turbocharged flat 6 engine, 777 PS, 980 Newton meters as I mentioned earlier. But one cool thing you're probably starting to notice is the way these colours work, the gold and red. So on this side of the car, on the left side of the car with the pushrod suspension here, you have gold springs. On the right side of the car, you have the red springs. Those colour combos continue. In the wheel here, you have the ceramic brakes with gold calipers. You have gold stitching on the left-hand side of the car. But if I were to come round to the other side of the car, the red spring, the red calipers, the red logo there on the centre lock, and interior wise, red stitching, red floor mat embroidery, red everything on this side, which is really quite cool. This is the beating heart of the car, the beating heart of it, but let's just pull down the rear clam right now, which is fairly lightweight, but you have to be very careful and accurate with positioning it in place. Give it the click down where it will sort of actually pull itself in with sort of soft close, which is quite nice. And another cool touch, if you can just about make it out, is the CTR3 logo that's threaded into the weave. So the carbon fibre on the wider arches that you've got here is actually tinted quite dark, so you barely can notice that this is exposed carbon, which gives it quite a nice finish when you're right up close to it. If I come in a little bit closer on this, maybe you can just about catch the weave inside the black there. But with the Club Sport version, you have a new look to the front end, you have those wider arches, you have the bigger rear wing versus the standard car. You've got the scoop up here, which again is an exposed carbon fibre coming over across the rear deck. But the, regular CTR3, if you can call it a regular car, with 750 PS was already crazy fast. This just takes it on to another level. Now, if we come around, have a quick glance further at the interior in here, where obviously you have the gold embroidery on this side. Step right in. In here, you have bespoke dials created by RUF for this car. Some features that you might recognise, it's a Porsche dashboard, Cayman air vents, because they work quite neatly with the cylindrical shapes. Even actually the embroidery up here on the dash is gold to one side and red to the other. Everywhere you look, it's all completely sort of bespokely made, and this car actually has a new sort of special sound system built in above in the roof as well, and all around the car. I will turn off that for the moment, because one other thing I want to show you, if I press and hold to turn this system off, the infotainment system here, and then if we turn it back on, even there you've got the gold to red, left to right. But let us just quickly start the car up. Into life, the flat 6 noise. This is basically home to an awful lot of power. And one I'm rather looking forward to driving, because even just sat here, just getting a little feeling of being in the car, you feel super low. It feels like a hardcore beast. So let's see what it's like out on the roads. Here we are then, and the first thought is race car. You hear everything, the noises of the road, all of the swooshes of the air coming through the car, the engine, the turbos. It's really quite fascinating. Just give it a little sort of squirt and you get a sense of how much power this car has and how it is basically a rocket ship wearing number plates. It is something out of space in terms of how it looks, but those performance numbers are just boggling my mind. Just cruising along though is not really giving this kind of what it's due. I mean, I'm sitting here holding a small but tight steering wheel. We've got some aids, some electronic aids, ESP, ABS, but obviously you have to be a little bit sensible because this is a lot of power in a crazy, crazy, crazy machine. So let's just pop it into manual for a moment. Start dropping down the gears with the paddles. You start to get some more of the noise, and then give it a little squirt, and you get a small sense of how much this car has to offer, up to 7,100, the red line. But, I mean, the noises, you're just hearing this air coming through above you. It feels like, I mean, I'm just looking at the mirrors at the end plates. You don't have a rear view mirror. So in the entertainment system in the center, you can turn on the camera so you can have a permanent camera viewing backwards. And then you come out onto a straight like this, just to get a little sense of this. It just goes on boosting away, and the air is sucking in through the scoop above you. And then when you lift off, you hear the sort of turbos releasing. It feels so hardcore. I mean, turning in, you don't have to give it much steering lock to get a nice turn out of it. Just sticks planted and flat to the road. I'm kind of mesmerized, but deeply sort of engrossed in the experience and the concentration required to drive the car. One of the craziest things in here is how I am just sort of feathering the throttle. I haven't yet built up the confidence to give it more of the beans that it's capable of, just because there is so much there, nearly 800 horsepower. That is sort of the absolute top end of supercar territory in a car that we're out driving, obviously very aware of how special it is. Less than 30 of them produced, of the CTR3 and the CTR3 Club Sport. The car has an integrated roll cage built into it, so sort of straight in front of me, up here above the windscreen at the side of the side windows, literally cage there, ready, protected, ready to go out on the racetrack, built for that purpose, that inspiration. And you feel that, you really get that sensation coming through completely in the car when you're driving it. Then give it a little spin. Okay. Little sensation of what it's got under tap there, underfoot. It just picks up and launches you forward. I'm a little bit lost for words on this one. Sensation of just pressing the throttle and being launched away and pushed back into your seat. Yeah. Now the absolute thing to remember with this car is it's nothing like a normal supercar that you might go out and buy. It is a raw experience. It's a working experience. You feel like you're putting in the concentration, but also the sort of effort on the steering wheel. It's not a 918 Spider that you can jump in and just sort of floor it and be, I guess, senseless in what you're doing. And here you need to be careful. You need to be engaged with it. You need to be on the same wavelength as it. You need to be in that zone to go out and drive, because I guess it's probably quite willing to bite you if you're not careful, but it's also very willing to reward you if you are careful, like when you do that. It just launches into a next universe. It's just off like a rocket. It's very clearly absolutely race car focused though, and on the road like this there's only so much of the performance band that you can even begin to touch on, let alone use all of it. Out on a runway you would be flying down the straight, out on a track you would be gripping through the corners at speeds I guess you wouldn't necessarily normally have thought about, but this is sort of the culmination of a lot of work and development and taking and sort of cherry picking the best ideas to make a car that is about the experience that you have when you're driving it, and that really sets it apart from other cars that you can go out and buy. It's just something so different in terms of the drive, of you the driver and your focus on the car and what you're enjoying. As we cruise through a little bit of town, the exhaust valves are closed, but I was going to say you feel every bit of bump or undulation in the tarmac, because obviously it's a race car, you need to be connected with the road on which you're driving, and you do get that sensation completely back up through the car. So it might not be the most civilized car to commute in a city in the world, but that's not really what this thing is built for. And then here, where we have a rail track, we can put the lift system up. So raise the nose so that we're not going to damage the splitter as we cross, and then pop it back down. Pretty compulsory in this kind of car. When the road straightens out in front of you, you just give it a squeeze and away you go. Honestly, it's quick. We're returning back to base then. I'll pop it back to drive just to chill out for the last 50 meters, if even that. So we can go around and pull back in. Okay then. Well, let's park the car back up, have one last quick little look around it. Each CTR3 can be set up bespokely for each customer, so in terms of the ride, in terms of whether you're going to be driving it on the road, on the track, obviously the paintwork and embroideries and configuration, customization side of things as well. You can make this how you want, but basically after my drive, 3 words: nice, nice and nice. And with it parked up this way around, it allows us to come in and take a little bit more of a look at the back of the car. And think about this, because when this came out in 2007, the original CTR3, it was up against the likes of the Carrera GT, so it was compared fairly heavily to that at the time, with the manual option, but even with more power in the CTR3. But it's a completely different drive to the 918 Spider. We're parked here outside the showroom and the workshop where these cars are built, where RUF have built up their history, so it's quite a special place. Now as you go around, there are some things that you recognise from other Porsche models, the lights for example, various parts of the interior, the gear stick, the levers, that kind of thing, and that's because they work closely to make this car with components that basically work perfectly and fit and are developed and ergonomically feasible. And I could go on, but so let's talk a little bit more about this. It's clearly a car built very much for a purpose. If we were trying to talk about this car as a car to go and drive to the supermarket and do your shopping, it's not going to achieve high points. It doesn't have a huge amount of luggage space in the front. It's not the most practical in the world. There's not a huge amount of sort of headroom and space. I might jump back into the car, but that's not exactly what it's for. So it would be wrong of me to criticize it on that front. Let's jump in and have a little look around the inside, and I think maybe in here 1 or 2 things could be slightly more refined, you know, in terms of the steering wheel, some of the trim maybe, but the carbon is very nice. The Alpine system here, very functional and effective. And if I start it back up again, key in the slot to the left, it comes to life with the gold and red. Sort of some familiar controls underneath, but I'll actually show you the camera as well when this is on in 1 second, and how that side of things work. Okay, let's accept the navigation menu, and then camera. I mean, it works well, so you can't see anything backwards, but that side of things works. All you've got behind you is a window to an engine bay, where, yeah, there's nothing really to see back there, other than knowing it's right behind you. Even the headliner actually has the red stitching on one side, and if I come over here, the gold stitching. But like I said, you hear so much of the noise coming through the scoop above you, for the airflow obviously through and into the engine, which is super cool. So in here, yes, maybe it could be a little bit more updated, a little bit more modern, but you know, this is a platform from 2007, effectively. So it's not exactly bad for the time. And if I show you the door sills as well, you've got the CTR3 Club Sport logo threaded into the weave there as well. I don't know how you do that, but it looks really, really nice and really cool. And yeah, small mirrors, small view backwards, but you do catch the sort of end plates in the mirrors, which look neat as well back there. And overall, you know, can't really fault it for the purpose this car is trying to achieve, because it does that fantastically well. There is no sort of debate. It's a very, very different prospect to a 918 Spider, and I don't think a customer who's sort of considering a 918 Spider would buy one of these instead, for sure. You know, it's a completely different thing. Maybe it's an addition in the garage if you want sort of both of the different experiences. That's the camera, by the way. And then the exhaust system that I told you we've been driving with the valves closed, so as not to cause disturbance. But you can make it an awful lot louder should you so wish, if you're that way inclined. I just think it looks futuristic and space age and something different. You know, it's out there, it's wild, it's crazy, it's a monster, and it can go up to 236 miles per hour. Just think about that, 236 miles per hour. This car is crazy. Anyway, a big thanks to RUF for allowing me to come along, take this car out for a drive. Big thanks to the owner, of course, as well. Very much appreciate it, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. For now, though, time to return the key. That's it from the RUF CTR3 Club Sport, but I'll catch up with you again very, very soon. Cheers.